Hi there, what we're going to look at today is the functionalist view towards a nuclear family, which is where you've got a mother and a father and a child or children which are biologically part of the family, very much like we've seen on Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, like we've seen on our movie when talking in class discussion. So we're going to look at the positive effect of the nuclear family and look at what the functionalists, or two key functionalists, think about the nuclear family, these being Murdock and Parsons. Okay, so just to start, we're going to look at George Peter Murdock, and he talks about the 4 essential functions of a nuclear family, and describes these how they have a positive effect upon not just the family but also towards society. Firstly, he talks about a stable satisfaction of the sex drive within monogamous relationships. So, for example, in Britain, we have a culture of monogamy, where you are married to one single person and one single person alone, and it is forbidden if you go against that, and you don't stray away from that, and that is our culture. Obviously, we know that happens, and as adultery happens. But Murdock said that by having a stable satisfaction of sex drive, it shows a positive relationship between man and woman, and it also demonstrates a stable satisfaction towards each other, showing positive role models to children alone. So by having a stable satisfaction of sex drive, what Murdock says is that two people get together purely on the basis for companionship, and more importantly because of love, and because of that it shows a positive relationship to young children within the family. It also stops people going from relationships to relationships and preventing people from straying, and therefore because of that prevents the likelihood of the nuclear family breaking up. Second point that Murdock talks about is the biological reproduction of the next generation, and says that obviously without a man and woman in a relationship or in a marriage in this situation, it prevents the future, the next generation coming along. So therefore, without the biological reproduction, it prevents society continuing, and obviously if we look at 100 years from now, if there was no reproduction, there would be no next generation, therefore society would not exist. So therefore what he's saying is that from point 1, which I've stated in terms of the stability between man and woman, it therefore allows that biological reproduction to occur, and therefore the positive process starts. The third point, which then comes into our socialisation topic, is a very key point. It's the socialisation of the young. So what he says is, what Murdock's view is, that by having a man and woman in a family, it allows both the man and woman to teach basic norms and values to their children, which will be influential as they grow up and go through their primary socialisation, and then as they develop as young people. And obviously what Murdock looks at is the positive role that this brings, and whether we agree with it or not, also looks at gender roles. So what should your behaviour be as a man? What should your behaviour be as a woman? And it also allows gender roles to come into play, so that people are living a culture by their masculinity or femininity. And finally, the fourth point, what we can look at today, is the meeting its members' economic needs, producing food and shelter, for example. So basically, it allows people to live a healthy life, but allows for wellness amongst the children. And likewise, if you look at point 3 and point 4, what I'd like you to also consider is how the positive impact that parents can have upon the children. If we're looking at education, where they may support them in education, but not just education, the manners that you bring by sitting at a table, okay, the basic norms of behaving within society, which I'm sure many of your parents have instilled into you, but also other things such as your speech is developed within there, your understanding towards the days of the week, and also then months, counting, etc. So the basic teaching or the basic education that is required from a young age, that is a key part of the socialisation which Murdock talks about, which is a very, very influential and important part of the nuclear family. And then just to finally, meeting the members' economic needs, producing food and shelter, obviously with man and woman, often nowadays particularly, men and women both work, so therefore that allows a dual income, which therefore obviously has a very beneficial state towards the children within that family. Now, what I'd like you to also look at in terms of Murdock views, I'd like to look at a little bit of your own research towards this. Now, these are the 4 essential functions the nuclear family plays towards society, which he talks about. But I'm sure, particularly points 3 and 4, you'll be able to look at and bring in your own ideas towards how the nuclear family provides that. The second function we're going to look at is Parsons' theory. And Parsons looks a lot about the Industrial Revolution and talks about how the families have changed and the reasons why families have changed. So his functional fit theory is that society changes. The type of family that fits that society and the functions it performs change. Basically what he's saying is before the Industrial Revolution, families were normally extended families where parents had children, and within that family there were also grandparents and possibly aunties and uncles, because the main purpose of the family was about survival. As you can see in the pictures, in the middle picture there, you've got people teaching each other how to wash or washing, and then the picture in the bottom left, you've actually got a picture of farming. And what we mean by the Industrial Revolution is before machinery came in, which was around the 1700s. And like I said, the Industrial Revolution was, prior to the Industrial Revolution, families were very much about extended family, where you were taught how to do certain things such as wash, clean, hunt, survive, make houses, and the family was very much about survival, and everybody chipped in and worked together to achieve that. Once the Industrial Revolution came around and machines came into play, like you can see on the bottom right there, families then changed more towards a nuclear, purely on the basis that the role within society changed, and like Parsons saying, the family type did no longer fit the situation of needing to be taught from your elders, basically, and therefore that's when the nuclear family started coming in, when the Industrial Revolution came in. So like I've said there, over the last 200 years, society has moved from pre-industrial to industrial. Like I said, basically the invention of machinery. And the main family type has changed from extended family to the nuclear family. The nuclear family fits the more complex industry society better, but it performs a reduced number of functions. So basically what we're saying, prior to the Industrial Revolution, the family was very much about functioning together, working together, and supporting each other to go about your everyday business. And what's happening now is basically the function of the family produces a reduced number of functions. Now, as we know previously from socialisation module, primary socialisation is a key factor within the family, and the nuclear family is still responsible for teaching children the norms and values of society, known as primary socialisation, which we're very much familiar with. Now, a very important part of Parsons' theory, and some people agree with this and some people won't, is the importance of being taught gender role. And basically, the important part of socialisation, according to functionalists, is gender role socialisation, as you can see. And basically, Parsons says that by having a nuclear family, it allows men and women, boys and then girls, to have an understanding towards what their role is within the family. If primary socialisation is done correctly, then boys learn to adapt the instrumental role, also known as the breadwinner. Now, as you can see in the bottom left picture, you can see there a woman waving to her husband who is going to work, and you can just see the young child at the bottom. Her role is obviously then more of the carer. So like I've said, the role of the man is more of the instrumental role to provide in terms of financial support. They go out to work and earn the money. Then secondly, as Parsons says, girls learn to adapt the expressive role, doing the caring work, housework, and bringing up the children, which we spoke about previously. So fitting more roles associated with their genders, masculinity and femininity roles. So have a little think about what's going on there. I'm sure you've got your own views towards whether that has a positive impact upon the family and society, or whether it's actually a sexist view which Parsons holds. Now, what I'd like you to do now, I'd like to go away and have a look at the two views what I've just taught you, or briefly spoke over. Have a look at your own research it yourself, and have a look what other ideas you can come up with. And then I'd like you to select either the blue question, discuss using examples Murdock and Parsons' view towards a nuclear family, so looking at pros and cons to it, positive and negatives to it. Or secondly, the green question, explain using example Murdock's view and how the nuclear family has a positive impact on society. So we're looking at it from a positive perspective. So what role does it have in terms of what we've spoke about in terms of the 4 areas what you discussed. What I'd like is around a page of writing. Okay, no more. So I'd like you to be quite concise in what you're writing, and have a go. Thank you very much.